It's Hump Day, baby! January the 21st, 2015. On the Hard Starboard Radio Network at blogtalkradio.com. I am your host, Jasmius, your ruler, your benevolent despot, and your fountain rabbi of conservatism, constitutionalism, Christianity, and common sense. 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday. Guest call-in number, 646-478-5068. Email address, excuse me, there's no throat clearing button. There's a cough button, but no throat clearing button. Occasionally there's a sneeze button when I'm quick enough on the draw, but not a throat clearing button, so just going to have to put up with it. Guest call number, I think I started to say that, 646-478-5068. Email address, jasmius@comcast.net. Chat room is open. And, of course, thank God, the State of the One address is over, but we'll get to that here in the hour number one of today's excursion and blogcasting awesomeness at blogtalkradio.com/HSR network. And here you will find 7.5 years, 3/4 of a decade worth of podcasts that you will want to download, every blessed last one of them, for your education, edification, enlightenment, and entertainment, and all your life's endeavors. You just can't do without this, folks. Even if you're not headed to a desert island to live by yourself like Tom Hanks in Castaway, which I think it's still... I wonder if they had made Castaway now, and Tom Hanks' character had named his soccer ball Wilson, would it have had a number 3 on it? Oh, I guess the fact that it was also deflated would have indicated... that would have provided a great Super Bowl 49 reference. A deflated ball, you know. Get it? Yeah, the Patriots are going to get it, that's for certain. I'm talking about Deflategate, in case anybody was wondering, in Malaga, Washington. So you want to download it's got to be close to 700 podcasts. Just get them all, folks. It is a chronicle of the age of the one thus far, however long it ends up lasting. There's also a follow button at blogtalkradio.com/HSR network for you to click in the hopes, first of all, of finding out what we're doing, keeping up with show scheduling and all that, and joining the ever-burgeoning hordes of Hard Starboard Nation. And, perchance, perhaps, to put Hard Starboard Radio on the main page at blogtalkradio.com as a featured podcast, right alongside another production of the Hard Starboard Radio Network, that, of course, being American Daily Review, ladies and gentlemen. A podcast airing Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. It is the kickoff of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, a 3-hour podcast on, a 3-hour program, I should say. Eventually it ends up on podcast one way or the other, but a 3-hour program on 2 venues, 1 day a week, that we're going to make into a 3-hour program daily on 1 venue. And then, of course, with rebroadcasts and weekends as befits a syndicated radio program. In the first hour at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review, where, of course, there are 5.5 years of podcasts. I'm not quite finished with lunch yet, so you're just going to have to bear with me on that. 5.5 years worth of podcasts for your downloading enjoyment. blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. So if you do a little math there, that's a combined 13 years of podcasting gold, ladies and gentlemen. And in the first hour, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern, high noon in the Pacific Coast on Saturdays, I am joined by my friend, my comrade in arms, my brother from another mother, and mutual benefactor. That would be, of course, Douglas V. Gibbs, Mr. Constitution, that Constitution guy. He joins me, and we go through the All-Star Collision big stories of the week, however long it ends up taking, whether he has to bail after the first hour because he has an in-studio guest later on in the third hour of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, or if it takes up the entire 2 hours at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. Or if it's somewhere in between, in which case my friend from the great state of Indiana, that Hoosier gal, Jennifer Crawford, joins me. We know each other since the mid-'90s. We're on the staff together at RepublicanForum.com. And we always have a good, nice, friendly, neighborly chat. It's a nice contrast with hour number 1 and with hour number 3. Because at the top of the third hour of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, not only do we dial up the intensity, but we switch venues. From blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review to KCAAradio.com. Globally, KCAA AM 1050, FM 106.3 locally in the Southern California Inland Empire area. The Inland Talk Express, where no listener is left behind. CNBC News Radio, with some sports thrown in for good measure, kind of like Hard Starboard Radio. For the flagship program of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, drum roll, please. I don't have a drum roll sound effect. I should probably get one at some point. Constitution Radio with this gentleman. YouTube.com/user/Hard-Starboard Radio, YouTube.com/user/American Daily Review 2. Watch, listen, subscribe, learn it, live it, love it. Thank you for your attention. I gotta finish my lunch. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, AM 1050, FM 106.3, KCAA, KCAAradio.com. It is the local show with the global footprint, folks. And I understand that selling line, that catchphrase is starting to catch on big time Down in SoCal, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people have said, hey, I like that. Yeah. See, that is how you go from being a local show with a global footprint to being a global show with a galactic footprint, because that'll be the next step, folks. When we are national, when everybody in the country knows Douglas V. Gibbs' name, and who knows, maybe quite a few, maybe a majority of the American people will become familiar with Chasmius as well. But that is when I'm going to call it that. The global show with a galactic footprint, because we never stop shooting for the stars, ladies and gentlemen. Why do you think I refer to it as the Starship Pistachio? Come on. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? And I don't just say that because I'm a hardcore trekker of, what is it now, 46 years standing. Yes, indeed, folks. And then no joke about it, by the way. I have been a trekker for that long, but in fact, we got to trademark it. I'm serious about that. Sooner or later, we got to trademark that. Local show with the global footprint, global show with the galactic footprint. We got to trademark that. That's too good to leave out there for somebody else to take. And besides, if we trademark it, I mean, it's like Marshawn Lynch trademarked beast mode, the phrase beast mode. And every time anybody uses it, like the University of South Carolina used it, somebody else, I can't remember right off the top of my head, used it. Guess what? They had to pay Marshawn Lynch royalties. So, that another way to just create another revenue stream for Constitution Education Enterprises, LLC. Under which umbrella of Constitution Radio, Douglas V. Gibbs resides. But it is a local show with a global footprint. It features the regulars, myself, Alex Ferguson of ConservativeCannonade.com, and Engineer Joe, who is a good Joe indeed. It features a top-tier guest, whether national, regional, or local. The book of the week. The Constitution Quest question of the week, taken from a piece from the game, available at many retail outlets, including the original, ConstitutionQuest.com. And if you get your copy of Constitution Quest, the board game, at ConstitutionQuest.com, and you put the discount code DOUG, D-O-U-G, in the discount field, you get 10% off your purchase. I mean, it's a heck of a deal. You can't beat that deal except around Christmas time. If you were such a lollygagger that you missed out on getting Constitution Quest, the board game, the last 3 months of last year, when you could have gotten 20% off on top of an additional Christmas discount, well, then better luck next year, pal. But 10% still not bad. And then, of course, the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week, brought to you by All-Star Collision, the kings of rock and roll. In Corona, California, web address allstarcl.com, and the local number in Corona, California is 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of rock and roll. Sponsor of the Big Stories of the Week, which some Saturdays is a focus exclusively on stories 2 and 1, and other weeks, as it has been of late, is just basically a synopsis of all of them. And last Saturday there were 14. There's 14 or 15 every week, folks. And you know what? I am the producer of the All-Star Collision Big Stories of the Week, because it all comes from my Yeoman, and God willing, in the very near future, no longer pro bono, But I do it because I love it, and then to get paid on top of it would make me cum. I mean, quite frankly, you think I'm kidding? Good thing the Jasmius cam only comes down to about my collarbones, huh? But moving right along, from all of my contributions, keeping the lights on at politicalpistachio.com. So, like I say, local show with a global footprint, 3-hour program on 2 venues, 1 day a week that we're going to turn into a 3-hour program daily on 1 venue through the powerhouse blowtorch flagship station, KCAA, KMET. If there's another one, we're not going to be choosy about it. We'd like it to be KCAA. The Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs is the #1 show on the weekend on KCAA. It is the 3rd most listened to show, period, on KCAA. And there's some syndicated shows on KCAA. I mean, there's I think Don Imus is still on there. Ed Schultz. I mean, there are some syndicated national shows, folks, and we're #3. Maybe he's behind those 2 syndicated shows. I don't know, but I mean, the harmonic tremors, the networking, the people with bigger and bigger pockets getting interested and the key is getting them interested enough to become a heap of big sponsors of Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, Constitution Education Enterprises, LLC, because it's like I always say, and I've never clung to this hope more white-knuckledly, if that's a term, than I have now. I am reminded of the line in You've Got Mail when Kathleen Kelly, Meg Ryan's character, decides to close down her bookstore, the little shop around the corner. And she says, I don't know what I'm going to do for money. And Gene Stapleton's character, Birdie was the character's name. She said, oh, don't worry, dearie. I'm very rich. I bought Intel at 6. And the point of that is getting in on the ground floor of something that becomes big. Everybody, you thought the same thing. I wish I could be in that position. I wish I could know somebody who hit it big and be invited along, to walk on my tractor beam to their starship and go to the stars and make it and be set. Or at the very least, for however long the run lasted, to make enough to where you don't have to worry about money ever again, even if it does go away. And this is one of those situations, I believe, ladies and gentlemen. I have to believe it because it is the only hope that I know of. But it's like Doug says, we fully intend to become. I don't care if I become rich. I just like to, be comfortable for I am way into the second half of my life. I'm 50 years old. I'm not going to live, more than, depending on if my parents and grandparents are any indication, I may live as little as 9 more years. I may live as many as almost a half a century long, beyond today. But I just had to have enough to live on comfortably. I don't have to be rich, but just enough to live on comfortably for the rest of my life. That'd be plenty for me. I don't need the Obama regime to decide what's enough. I'll be happy to make that decision for myself. But in the end, I don't require huge. I don't even need to be worth 12 or however many $1 million like the Obamas themselves are. I don't need that. I just need enough to live on. If I ended up being worth, $500,000, $1 million at the most, somewhere in that range would be plenty for me. plenty for anybody. Ought to be plenty for anybody, really. But that's not my decision to make for anybody else. That would be enough for me. See, Doug says that he's fully intent on making $34 million a year. Why $34 million? Because Rush Limbaugh makes $33 million. But that's not the primary reason we do what we do. We do what we do because we love what we're doing, because we believe in what we're doing. Restoring the Republic, resurrecting the United States Constitution, getting America back within constitutional boundaries. That's we believe in it. We enjoy pursuing that. It's why we're doing it pretty much for free right now. I mean, I was on unemployment. My unemployment ran out 7 months ago. Mr. Gibbs is currently on workers' comp. So I mean, we're not rich. Let's just put it that way. So if we become rich, we will definitely appreciate every last aspect of it. But that's not primarily why we will be doing it. Because we're doing it for free now. So it's just that simple. Now, one of the means of getting there, right here, LibertyTreeMediaGroup.com. While working several jobs over the past decade, Doug Gibbs pursued a calling, learning the Constitution of the United States of America. He objectively researched, dissected, and obtained illumination from each and every word in that historic document. This calling led Doug into internet radio, the political pistachio radio revolution, which is the forerunner, of course, of constitutional radio on KCAA, where he spoke on political news topics of the day, all the while using those events to illustrate the wisdom inherent in our founders and the Constitution itself. A humble man, Doug was soon asked to teach classes about the Constitution and later to guest on other shows. Then on cable network news programs like Fox and Friends twice, Al Jazeera twice, Sean Hannity, National Public Radio, CNN was going to be on that list, but they chickened out. Love to get MSNBC on that list. That'd belong on Comedy Central, actually. It's eminently easy to believe that he was once turned down as a guest on a legal show because having someone without a law degree schooling lawyers on the United States Constitution, a guy who drove a sand and gravel truck, would just be too psychologically traumatic. Mr. Gibbs is gregarious, earnest, and masterful in his ability to use current world events to help us all better understand this most historic document, the defined structure of the branches of government within our republic and ourselves. Liberty Tree Media Group is proud to market Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Check out www.douglasvgibbs.com, his incredibly popular blog, politicalpistachio.com. I'm a big part of that. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channels, ladies and gentlemen. That would be, of course, youtube.com/user/hardstarboard radio, to which the most listened to podcast of each week on Hard Starboard Radio is uploaded. And our other YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/American Daily Review 2, to which each Saturday afternoon extravaganza, all 3 hours smushed together because it is really one program, gets uploaded. So remember those YouTube channels, youtube.com/user/Hardstarboard Radio, youtube.com/user/American Daily Review 2. Watch, listen, subscribe, learn it, live it, love it. How many of you were sufficiently masochistic that you tuned in the 7th season of the Obama show, despite my warnings to you to not bother and save yourself a lot of indigestion, acid reflux, and extreme hypertension? Good, good. I'm glad to see that. In fact, the overnight ratings for it reflect that. It was certainly the lowest rated State of the One address of the age of the One. One of the lowest rated ever. So clearly, at the very least, Barack Obama is a past fad. Not a passing fad, a past fad. You know, the bloom is off that rose, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, got the "Oh swoosh" bumper sticker, moved on a long time ago. Now, that's at worst. I'd like to think there's some Americans who've had the scales finally fall from their eyes, and far too late for the rest of us, you know, more than 2 years too late, and now recognize the error of their ways, the tragic error of their ways, and that, you know, lack of viewership is an indication of opposition. I can't really bring myself to believe that either, but you know, you can always hope. Now, you know, it's funny that Jim Garrity considers watching the State of the One address to be part of his job description. I don't know, maybe it is, but you know, it's not. I tell you what, I love blogging, I love podcasting, I love radio. But watching the State of the One address is the only thing I can think of that would actually be painful to do, that would be a drawback of doing this for a living. Right now I'm doing all three pro bono, because there isn't any money yet. We're all volunteers. We're all working to the point where it takes off and it becomes a revenue-generating operation and we can earn our living from it. And the proof of our passion is that right now we're all volunteers. But that would be the only thing I could think of that would be a drawback, a negative about doing this for a living. And it really, as Jonah Goldberg gets into at the corner today at National Review Online, and Jim Garrity made mention of this too in his Morning Jolt newsletter today, which if there's enough time, we might throw in some of his observations from today's edition. But it's just, you've heard it all before. You've heard the BS catchphrases, you know, no blue America or red America, but only America, and we are our brother's keeper, which is a total skewing of Christian scripture from the Gospels. You know, and then of course all the partisan hard left laundry list, which I still say is not a request from Congress as far as legislative requests that he knows Congress is not going to pass, but those are executive orders that he's going to issue in short order. He's got his pen and his phone. We can't wait. We got to have higher taxes. We got to have free community college. We got to have all this stuff. And we can't wait. And I've got a pen and I've got a phone. I mean, these are executive orders coming down the pike that he was giving on which he was giving heads ups, ladies and gentlemen. And what else? And of course the snark and the below the belt one-liners. Like at one point he set up the Republicans, the majority Republicans, I might add, when he said made mention of the successful elections of his tenure and Republicans started laughing because they were thinking, oh, 2010 to 2014, and then Obama waited a beat or two and then said, yeah, I want both of them. Ha 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 ha. Now there was nothing new here. There was nothing new. There was Barack Obama, the left-wing extremist, Barack Obama, the juvenile delinquent, Barack Obama, the class cut-up, class clown, the Barack Obama, the faux eloquent liar. It was all the same. We've seen it all before. This is why hardly anybody tuned into it on TV last night. And frankly, if I were a member of Congress, I wouldn't go. I would not have been there. There had plenty of reasons we're going to get to here in hour number one. Like a lot of people, Jonah Goldberg found last night's speech a chore. Now, that's less of a criticism of Obama than it sounds, coming from Mr. Goldberg. He finds all State of the Unions to be tedious, particularly this late in the presidency. And I talked about that yesterday. I don't recall ever watching any of George W. Bush's State of the Union addresses either. It's the template of the modern State of the Union address. It has to happen. It has to be on TV. It has to be nationally televised. And it's the same deal where the House bailiff or Sergeant at Arms says, I think it's Sergeant at Arms, says, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States! You just fast forward through that. Making the way down the aisle and everybody, all members of Congress reaching out, wanting to shake hands and take selfies. And yeah, I love to hear the music at that 78 speed. And they get up on the podium, and then they go down through a 45 or 55 or 65-minute laundry list. And it's more toward the 45-minute end when it's a Republican president, more toward the 65-minute end when it's a Democrat president, because, of course, Democrat presidents just love to hear themselves talk and talk and talk and talk. Wah, 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 wah. It's all the same. So, I mean, I've never really been, I can't remember. It's probably since the Reagan presidency that I ever, actually sat through an entire State of the Union address. It's just, I know, maybe that's a function of being a political junkie like I've always been. I followed this stuff religiously for 35 years. So, I mean, it's not new. You know what it's going to be. You know what they're going to say. You know what the reaction, the opposition party reaction is going to be, or the response, the retort, the rebuttal, if you will. So what? Been there, done that, got the T-shirt. That's why I don't watch it. Now, I especially wouldn't watch Obama do this, because, I mean, that's even more pounded into the ground after now 7 of them. So, of course, Jonah Goldberg would find State of the Union addresses to be tedious. He does think it was better delivered than most of his State of the Union addresses, State of the One. He didn't, however, think it was particularly well written. The shadow of crisis has passed. C- at best. More telling, the last 15 minutes amounted to Obama's golden oldies. Already into reruns. I mean, when a television series reaches its 7th season, 7 years is usually about as long as a TV series runs. I mean, unless it's animated, like The Simpsons or Family Guy or something like that. But as far as a conventional live-action TV series, usually it's about 7 years. I mean, Star Trek The Next Generation was 7 years. Star Trek Deep Space Nine was 7 years. Star Trek Voyager was 7 years. Star Trek Enterprise would have been 7 years, if not for Star Trek Voyager. Or maybe it was just, older Trekkers started dying off. I don't know. But... golden oldies, same material that everyone's heard ad nauseum for most of the past decade. Like, his real foe is cynicism. We can all work together. Yeah, we can all work for him. That's what he really meant. There are no red states or blue states. We are all our brother's keeper. Wah, 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 wah. The difference is that the first time we heard this crap, it had at least a superficial plausibility, a theoretical plausibility, because the Obama-dency hadn't happened yet. 5, 6, 10 years later, it's all just sad. It's sad because it shows that Obama still thinks his original shtick is fresh, but it's actually played out, and some of it was piffle to begin with. Now, get me started on my brother's keeper. I alluded to that earlier in the hour here on the Hump Day edition of the Hard Starboard Radio Network. It's also sad because it's so hypocritical. It's one thing to claim as a candidate that you're running against cynicism when you're a rookie politician. It's quite another to start the 7th year of your presidency cynically trolling the opposition with proposals you know cannot pass, but again, they're really just announcements of upcoming executive orders, while decrying the political gamesmanship and partisanship of your opponents, which of course is also old hat for this guy. He wants to work with Republicans but will veto anything significant they pass. He promises all sorts of free stuff out of one side of his mouth and then insists we must raise taxes to pay for it. Oh, so it's not free, huh? Well, it'll be free to the people who are to the intended recipients, which are not the same people as the people who are going to be paying for it. Of course, who really be paying for it is Janet Yellen's printing presses at the Federal Reserve, but I digress. He expresses his well-rehearsed outrage at the notion that the minimum wage isn't enough to support a family, when, of course, that's not what the minimum wage is designed to do. It's for jobs that are not intended to support a family on. Virtually any State of the Union address in the 7th year of a presidency would be dull. The best you can say about Obama's performance is that he didn't throw off the curve. Although, I don't know, I might take some issue with that because anything that Barack Obama touches gets thrown off. Just something awful. The RNC came out with something great. Now, I know, and a lot of you Tea Partiers out there, you don't like the RNC, you don't like Reince Priebus, you don't like or Priebus, or however you pronounce that, I can never remember. But I know you don't like the RNC, you don't like anything to do with the Republican establishment, but this is a great graphic they put out on rnc.org yesterday. I call it Barack Obama's, well, they called it Obama's record of failure. I called it Obama's Cloward-Piven success, the tale of the tape. See, that's the only thing on which I disagree with the Republican National Committee. It's only a record of failure if you assume that this man is an American president. And they put this out there to counter all these supposed make-believe successes that he then took credit for last night. Because, of course, he did it all. I mean, Congress, they wouldn't do anything. I had to do it all myself. With his pen and his phone. No matter what the law or the Constitution says. Yeah, the Constitution is an obstacle to American prosperity. Yeah, but bet you never had any idea about that. They never taught us that in civics class, did they? At least civics is an actual graduation requirement again, at least in the state of Arizona. But the RNC put out the real numbers, the real story, as Obama painted a rosy picture of his presidency. We'll give you a look at the numbers he won't mention. Oh, and what a laundry list it is, folks. 18.1 trillion total debt under Barack Obama as of January 14th, 2015. Now, somebody at the RNC hasn't caught up with the fact that it's 2015 yet. I guess they got a typo here. They have January 14, 2014. It's 2015, guys and gals. That's straight out of the Treasury Department, by the way. 10.6 trillion total debt when Obama became president on January 20th, 2009, 6 years and 1 day ago. That's from the U.S. Treasury Commissariat. 7.5 trillion amount added to the national debt despite Obama's 2010 State of the One declaration that he would not leave a mountain of debt. That's from the U.S. Treasury Commissariat. And from Barack Obama's own remarks on the State of the Union, January 27th, 2010. 4 trillion amount of debt that Obama once called irresponsible and unpatriotic. That's from a speech from then Senator Barack Obama at a campaign event in Fargo, North Dakota, July the 3rd, 2008. 1.8 trillion cost of Obamacare's coverage provisions through the year 2024. That's from the Congressional Budget Office, April the 14th of last year. 1.3 trillion total student debt held by Americans from the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Let's see, 869.3 billion total taxes in Obamacare. That's in the Joint Committee on Taxation, June the 15th, 2012. 95 billion cost of new regulations added since Obama became president. Source, American Action Forum. 60 billion cost of Obama's community college tuition plan over 10 years. That's from the Associated Press, believe it or not. January the 9th, 2015. 3.4 billion average amount of debt added daily since Obama became president. Source, U.S. Treasury Commissariat. Think about that for a minute, folks. Every single day of the last 6 years, on average, $3.4 billion added to the national debt on Barack Obama's watch. It's like I say, just give me $500,000 of it, and I'll be fine. I'll be golden. Tie me over the rest of my life easily. 3.4 billion. Also, how much the construction of the Keystone Pipeline would contribute to gross domestic product, according to a state commissariat review, if Barack Hussein Obama would get the bleep out of the way. $46.5 million Average number of Americans receiving food stamps in fiscal year 2014, which the Democrats consider to be an accomplishment. 13 million. Average number of Americans who have joined the food stamp program since fiscal year 2009. That's per year, I'm assuming. That's from the Commissariat of Agriculture, Department of Collective Farms. 7 million. Number of Americans who will no longer have employer-sponsored health insurance due to Obamacare. That's per the Congressional Budget Office, April 14th of last year. So, no, Obamacare did not and has not increased coverage. It's taken coverage from those who had it and given it to those who don't deserve it, because it's being given to them. 5.5 million Americans who have fallen into poverty since Obama became president. Yeah, the Obama boom, in other words. That's from the U.S. Census Bureau. 2.3 million Americans who are only marginally attached to the labor force. Those of you on the Jasmius cam, you can see me holding up my hand. That's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 401,000 construction jobs lost since Obama became president. That's also from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Somewhere down in Southern California, Doug is raising his arm without even necessarily realizing why he's doing it. 321,000 manufacturing jobs lost since Obama became president. I guess technically my last job was a manufacturing job. I'll hold my hand up again. That's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics as well. 273,000 number of people who left the labor force between November and December of 2014. Over 250,000 people, ladies and gentlemen. That's from the Bureau of Labor Stats as well. 56,492 current debt per capita under Obama. That's not $56,492 per family. That's $56,492 per each and every warm body in this country. Two sources on that, U.S. Census Bureau and the U.S. Treasury Commissariat. I guess that's another way of saying one lies, the other swears to it. 42,100. Number of jobs the construction of the Keystone Pipeline would support over 2 years, according to a state commissariat review. 21,724. Increase in debt per capita for Americans since Obama took office. Let me just quickly run these numbers. That's a just short of 64% increase in 6 years. And that's your share of it. For each and every last one of you. That's your share of it. That's my share of it. But of course, it doesn't get parceled out that way. Trust me, when over half of the American population is receiving revenue from the government rather than paying in, it's not. There's nothing progressive about it. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, 4,154 increase in family health care premiums under Obama per year. Remember when he said it was going to? The American families were going to save $2,500, and instead, not only have they not saved $2,500 a year, it's gone up by $4,154 a year. There you go. 2,484. Decline in median household income since Obama became president. Oh, I guess that was the $2,500 decrease he was talking about. U.S. Census Bureau, 1978. The last time the labor force participation rate was at its current level. As per the BLS again. 677 individuals who have been through Obama's revolving door, i.e. lobbyists. 215 rounds of golf Obama has played since he has taken office. 174 number of days Obama has spent all or part of on vacation. Let's just see. 365.2422 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, 365.2422 2, 3, 4. Nice. No, that's right. 2,192 days. 21 nights. Barack Obama has spent 8% of his presidency on vacation. Gosh, it's such a tough job, isn't it? Such a tough job to wield that pen and wield that phone. 100%. Total debt as a percentage of GDP under Obama. There's a milestone for you. That means that now everything we do, everything we generate, everything we earn belongs to the federal government. Yeah. The economy labors all year, and then it's all turned over to the government, in effect. If we were going to keep... And that's what we would have to do to keep the debt from just getting any bigger than it is. And then it would still be $18.1 trillion. 65.7% labor force participation rate when Obama became president. 62.7% labor force participation rate in this past December, last month. 65 number of fundraisers Obama attended just last year. Good Lord, that's about one. What is it? One every 5? That's like one. No, it's even more than one a week. That's a little more than one a week, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it's such a tough job. How our heart should bleed for dear leader. 32.8 average number of weeks someone will be unemployed. I'm raising that average up, ladies and gentlemen. 14.5% poverty rate in 2013. There's that Obama boom again. 13.2% poverty rate before Obama became president. Well, that just means there's more people to help, right? 6 veto threats issued by Obama in the past 3 weeks. That's according to whitehouse.gov, too, amazingly enough. And 0 attempts to actually work with Congress. Ever. But why should he work with Congress? He's got all their power. What's that old saying? The pen and the phone are mightier than the GOP? Or something like that. I've long maintained that Barack Obama is not incompetent. That he isn't in over his head. That he's not a stumbling cluster bleep of a miserable failure. But that he is in fact... or that he, in fact, has always known precisely what he was doing and has been an unparalleled success. He just wasn't doing what nearly everybody thought he was doing, trying to improve and build up and advance the interests, foreign and domestic, of the American people that twice elected him. Rather, he has been carrying out what he once publicly declared would be his chief legacy. My legacy will be in America brought down to the level of the rest of the world. That's a direct quote, folks. A direct quote from King Hussein. He's really never made much of a secret about it. Any actual vetting of the man in 2008 would have revealed it. He's been doing it for 6 years and counting. Last night's State of the One rant implicitly reiterated it. It's just that too few Americans were ever willing to pay attention and do their homework as the vigilant popular sovereigns the Founding Fathers intended them to be. And too few Americans were willing to brave the despicable smear of being denounced as racists, as though the one-time sin of slavery and Jim Crow, which America fully overthrew and outgrew over half a century ago, couldn't be forgiven without we the people inflicting upon ourselves the capital punishment of an Islamo-communist radical who would enslave us in turn. And what have some of us learned from this? That one-time sin will never be forgiven. That it is America that has been overthrown, and that Barack Hussein Obama will never set us free. Which begs the question of why he bothered making stuff up for which to take credit last night. The only straw man army he doesn't decimate. Why not cite the numbers above and take credit for being the president he's always wanted to be? Why not laugh in the faces of the American people and sneer, "Suckers"? Why not announce his anti-Constitution coup d'etat right there in the House chamber on national TV? I mean, it's not like anybody was watching anyway. The only explanation that makes any practical sense is that he is leaving in 2 years after all, and he's trying to preemptively shape the 2016 battlefield for Elizabeth Warren before congressional Republicans can do so, which I suppose is a small ray of hope. Then one remembers the principal reason why Barack Obama got elected in the first place. Because he was half black. And the table setting of 8 years of Bush derangement syndrome and the Democrat financial logic bomb. Now, Pocahontas won't have the latter two factors going for her and will face a powerful headwind of Obama fatigue. But she would be the historic first woman president after all. And no, it's not going to be Hillary Clinton. We've already talked about that. And if 2012 proved anything, it is that there is no limit to the ignorance and the gullibility of the 51%. Back after these faux commercial words with our number 2, the Hard Starboard Radio Network on Hump Day, baby, January the 21st, 2015. Don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 of the Hard Starboard Radio Network on this Hump Day, baby. January the 21st, 2015. And those of you watching on the Jasnius cam, I just proved once again just how powerful my sphincter really is. I would have needed it last night if I had been in the House chamber, which I mercifully was not. Because, who overran, it might be a little bit of hyperbole, but who overran the State of the Union, State of the One address last night? Would you believe illegal aliens? Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I guess it's their country now. And Barack Obama is their president, because he sure as hell isn't our president. And all 300 million of us are now trespassing on Mexican soil. The only remaining question is whether Canada will take us in. And it's not like they don't have plenty of space, right? Quote from Newsmax.com. Representative Steve King of Iowa, I believe it's Iowa's 1st Congressional District, took to Twitter on Tuesday to complain about Barack Obama's decision to invite a deportable immigrant to occupy the coveted seat next to First Lady Michelle Obama during the State of the One address, saying it was a violation of the rule of law. The Iowa Republican, who has been quite vocal in his opposition to President Barack Obama's actions on immigration, took to Twitter hours before the speech to complain that Barack Obama was breaking the law by inviting 20-year-old Texan, well, she's not a Texan, 20-year-old Mexican, Ana Zamora to the speech, reports Politico. Like that would have been the first time that Barack Obama broke the law. Zamora, a Dallas student, was invited to sit with Michelle Obama during the speech after she wrote the White House to thank the president for his unlawful, illegal, unconstitutional, despotic, power-grabbing executive decree in November, granting legal status that he didn't have the power legally to grant to her undocumented parents who are illegal parents who are a construction worker and a small business owner, both posts of which should be held by Americans, not Mexicans. Let them go back to Mexico and become a construction worker and a small business owner. Or let them come here legally, and then we wouldn't be having this conversation. In addition, Zamora is a dreamer, which means she's illegal too, or an alien brought to the United States at a young age who benefited from Obama's illegal, unconstitutional, unlawful, despotic, power-grabbing executive decree, the DACA program, Deferred Action for, I can never remember the C or the A, but trust me, that's the acronym, DACA, D-A-C-A, that granted her and thousands of others illegally granted them legal status that includes the possibility of obtaining work permits. End of quote. Now, that is a law-breaking trifecta, ladies and gentlemen. Another mockery of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 8, which, by the way, just for the record, since let's drag the Constitution into this, says, and I quote, "Before he enter on the execution of his office, he," meaning the president, "shall take the following oath or affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States." I'd say last night's State of the One address and the illegals filling up the House chamber made a mockery of that. And it's also the most brazen indication yet of what His Infernal Majesty contemptuously thinks of congressional Republicans' plans to repeal his amnesty decree, the Immigration Proclamation. But you know what, folks? He wasn't alone. This is via GatewayPundit.com. And from the DailyCaller.com, just for the record, a number of Democrats, so it wasn't just Obama, a number of Democrats, including First Lady Michelle Obama, are bringing illegal aliens as guests to the State of the One on Tuesday or last night. At least 5 Democrats are bringing illegal aliens to the State of the Union, according to reports. Of course, before mentioned First Lady Michelle Obama hosting Alan Alleman, a 20-year-old illegal alien from Nevada, from Mexico, squatting in Nevada, as one of her guests under new regime rules, which are illegal, unconstitutional, unlawful, and invalid. Alleman's deportation proceedings have been deferred because he was brought into the country while he was under the age of 16. Then you have Virginia Democrat Senator Mark Warner, freshly reelected. I wonder if he would have pulled out that election if Virginians had known that he was going to pull this. He invited 19-year-old Amber Pinto, an illegal alien who goes to Northern Virginia Community College, as his guest. Illinois 4th Congressional District Representative and Democrat Luis Gutierrez is bringing 27-year-old Gabino Sanchez, an illegal alien who lives in South Carolina and is fighting deportation, as his guest. Yeah, downtrodden. Texas 33rd Congressional District Representative and Democrat Mark Veazey has invited 32-year-old Julieta Garibay, an illegal alien who moved to Austin from Mexico with her family when she was 12, as his guest. Of course, they didn't have the legal right to do that. And Florida 14th District Representative Democrat Kathy Castor invited Jose Godinez Sampiero, Jose Godinez Sampiero, who has made news for trying to obtain a law license despite being an illegal alien, which would make him right at home in that profession, actually. So what's the lesson of this, folks? There is no middle ground to be found or had with any Democrat. No possibility of compromise on any issue, but particularly on immigration, because the law will not stop them. Only a political war and constitutional confrontation has a prayer, if that much, of doing so. At least that's the message that should have been sent last night, loud and clear. Now do you see, Speaker Boehner, Majority Leader McConnell, why you cannot cave again next month on the DHS appropriation, which defunds Obamnesty, that the House passed last week? Otherwise, the next deportation orders to arrive in your mailbox may be your own. And I don't mean from conservative voters. But it isn't all teeth gnashing, wailing, raging in frustration, and just putting your chin on your hand and just tedium. No, there is a punchline here, folks, and it's a delicious one. You're gonna love this, ladies and gentlemen. The GOP-Zionist empire strikes back. Now, what in the world is Jasmine talking about? Well, let me tell you, folks. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this will be the real State of the Union address. Quote from the Politico.com. I just love this. House Speaker John Boehner is setting up his most dramatic foreign policy confrontation with Barack Obama to date, inviting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to speak about Iran in front of a joint session of Congress on February 11th. I love it. I love it. Benjamin Netanyahu is going to deliver the real State of the Union address. And John Boehner did it. Oh, my goodness gracious, folks. Netanyahu is a fierce opponent of the emerging U.S. nuclear agreement with the sellout, with the Islamic Empire, and has served as Obama's foil of sorts as the negotiations have progressed. Oh, indeed. Remember Obama's 2011 profanity-laced tirade at then White House Chief of Staff Bill Daley, audible throughout the West Wing after Bibi Netanyahu schooled him on why Israel can't pull back to the 1967 frontiers, and did so in front of the media? You remember that? You remember that the steam was coming out his ears, the little volcanoes were in his eyes, and oh my goodness gracious. As Kevin Nash used to say during the NWO gimmick in World Championship Wrestling, this is too sweet! And Netanyahu's visit to Washington seems mostly for optics. When it comes to Iran, many Republicans and Democrats in the Capitol seem more closely aligned with Netanyahu than with Obama. Well, not that sanctions are going to make any difference, but still, the Israeli leader has already addressed Congress twice. In 2011, he received a raucous welcome typically reserved for an American president. What did I say in the first hour? What have I been saying for a long time now? Barack Obama is not an American president, which is why he doesn't receive raucous welcomes anymore. See, there's nothing that a hardcore narcissist hates more than to be upstaged by somebody he virulently hates and is more popular than he is. There couldn't be a better retort to Barack Obama's threatened veto of new Iran sanctions, now could there? Netanyahu's speech could present a spectacle rarely seen in Washington. The leader of another nation standing just blocks from the White House at the invitation of Congress to rebut the United States, which means Barack Obama's foreign policy. Oh, man, I've been waiting for 6 years for something like this. Oh, man, I mean, it almost makes you wish that Benjamin Netanyahu could run for president here, doesn't it? That'd be awesome, man. I mean, what if Benjamin Netanyahu, instead of running for Prime Minister of Israel again in 2009, what if he had run for, if he could have come here and run for president in 2008? I wonder how, I mean, yeah, you could say, oh, well, Obama still would have won, no Democrat. There's no Democrat that couldn't have failed to win in 2008, but you know what? Benjamin Netanyahu might have been able to do it. It's just within, I mean, this is one of those, how would the 2013 Seahawks do against the 1966 Green Bay Packers kind of thing, or the 74 Steelers or whatever. But it's still, I mean, I think it would have been within the realm of possibility. I mean, booyah! I am definitely watching this State of the Union speech, folks. In fact, Boehner did not, oh, this is even better. Boehner did not consult with the White House or the State Commissariat about inviting Netanyahu. He did it unilaterally. That's just too good. Or as Syndrome said it in The Incredibles, that's just too good. Instead, Boehner's and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's staff coordinated with Ron Dermer, the Israeli ambassador to the United States, who I wouldn't be surprised to see expelled in the next few days. Obama's pissed about this. He is fit to be tied with this. I mean, that's the cherry atop the proverbial sundae, folks. How can you tell, you may be asking? Easy. The White House's wailing, raging temper tantrum reaction. This is from BuzzFeed.com. However, the White House criticized the invitation as a breach of the protocol for when world leaders visit the U.S. In other words, how dare Boehner and McConnell diss me by treading on my constitutional turf to bring that Nazi kike here after I've sucked them dry of their Article 1, Section 1 legislative powers for 6 years and pissed in their faces again last night. Who the hell do they think they are? White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest said that usually leaders inform the White House before planning a trip to the United States. Hey, Josh, shh, come over here. Let me just between you and me, Josh. Screw you, pal. How does it feel for your demigod to be bitch slapped, little man? But I tell you, we're waiting 6 years for this, folks. I mean, it isn't a whole lot, but gosh, this is satisfying. Cathartic, even. He said, Josh Earnest, the White House spokesjerk, that the administration will decide a course of action after speaking with the Israelis about what Netanyahu will say in his address, the Associated Press reported. End of quote. You know what? If this White House, if Barack Obama thinks that he's going to cow Benjamin Netanyahu into letting them write his speech for him or just barring him from the country, they really have lost their ever-scheming minds, ladies and gentlemen. So, well done, Mr. Speaker. Well done, Mr. Majority Leader. Well done indeed. Now, if you put it on pay-per-view, you could cut the federal deficit in half. Ha ha! You think I'm kidding? You know what the only drawback to having a powerful sphincter is, ladies and gentlemen? You need to have a powerful diaphragm later on. Let you fill in the blanks. Well, there's only one more of these things. Hopefully just one more of these things from the one, and maybe he'll do it from the back nine and Skype in. That'd be nice. Just do it holographically, you know. Have a hollow State of the Union, HOLO, although HOLLOW would fit just as well. Now we finish the show today with what Jim Garrity referred to as Winter in Raging Whiner Nation. And Kevin Williamson expanded upon that, revised and extended it at NRO today in a piece entitled The Abolition of Private Life. They're coming for your omelets, folks. Or well, if I had said they're coming for your eggs, that would have had kind of a even more ominous connotation to it, wouldn't it? Now, one of the remarkable aspects of the recent spate of infantile left-wing protests that caught the aforementioned Jim Garrity's attention is that they are directed at private life and private spaces rather than at public institutions and public affairs. You know, it's just an even more egregious example of the trend toward just extended middle finger-ism. So that's really all it is. It's screw you. I'm gonna mess you up. It's the diametric opposite of live and let live, you see. One expects protests at City Hall. In New York, they even endured the unseemly spectacle of one of those shut-down traffic protests conducted by the city council itself, as though its members did not do enough to inconvenience the residents of that city. Protests in front of the police station or the hideously fascist-looking Federal Reserve building are part of the normal course of affairs in a constitutional federal republic with free speech and a strong tradition of lively discourse. But the profoundly stupid black brunch protests, during which racial grievance entrepreneurs disrupted meals at places that seemed to them offensively Caucasian, they actually referred to them as white spaces. Oh, but black people can't be racist by definition, right? And according to their definition, in which it's all about who has the power, even though a half-black man is in the White House, they are a different species of undertaking, and a poorly informed one at that. In New York City, protesters invaded the Pershing Square Cafe across the street from Grand Central Terminal, which is one of the more diverse spots in heavily segregated Manhattan, catering as it does to commuting 53-year-old lawyers from Fairfield County who check any number of different demographic boxes. The message these protests send is that there is no private space, and therefore no private life, so far as this particular rabble is concerned. It's the familiar Trotsky conundrum. You may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. That the people at brunch have no real direct connection to the events motivating the protesters is beside the point. They are targeted on racial grounds. Plain, simple exclamation point. These were detestable white spaces, and the people there were to be punished for being white, even if they were not, in fact, white. Their presence in white spaces makes them guilty by association. That the protesters were themselves largely white goes without saying. Oh, no, that's actually mildly surprising to me, but okay, I can certainly see it. Protests of this sort are a prestige performance for stupid white college kids, mainly. If you want to see a genuinely white space, a protest is your best bet. Not necessarily. Although, if these protests are becoming ever more white, what does that tell you about Black America? I'll leave you to ruminate on that. While it is the case that the phrase religious extremism is of limited use because it matters a great deal which religion is under discussion, the politics of religious extremist movements ranging from Al-Qaeda to the sundry Ayn Rand cults have in common that apostates are always punished with far greater severity than are mere infidels. It's one thing never to have seen the light, but to have seen it and rejected it is unforgivable. One of the great debates among Sharia scholars from the earliest days of Islam to the present is, how many days should an apostate be imprisoned before he is put to death? There's less debate about putting him to death, actually, or no debate. That dynamic makes it inevitable that well-meaning Obamianists are frequently on the receiving end of outrage from their more puritanical co-religionists. Let's see here. Such was the case in San Francisco's, inevitably named Castro district, a prominent homosexual neighborhood wherein 300 protesters shut down its main street to protest the fact that the neighborhood is a space dominated by white middle-class men and is symbolic of the racial divide within the LGBT community and gentrification in San Francisco in general, as one local dope put it. You know, isn't this getting really confusing? I need a scorecard to keep up with this. Now they're protesting the racial divide in the homosexual community? Well, I mean, I suppose there's the homosexuals with different racial classifications, I guess. But what is this a homosexual civil race war? Is that what I call this? Or is it along class? Because they use the term gentrification. So you got a dual civil war in the homosexual community on racial and class lines, apparently. I guess. It's starting to make my brain hurt again. Their demands were for all mainstream LGBT organizations to take concrete action in support of Black lives. So, oh, I get it. In support of Black lives. So this was hashtag Black Lives Matter trying to strong arm and coerce the Lavender Lobby. In the waning day, if they are the waning days, of the age of the one, the left they're going nuts. They're losing their minds, folks. They're turning on each other like rabid dogs. And of course, hashtag Black Lives Matter provided a list of organizations to which they would like to see local organizations offering donations. In other words, they were mugging local organizations. Which is to say, they're running a protection racket. Yeah, Jesse Jackson's been doing that for decades now. He and Al Sharpton. That's historically been a pretty good business for the left. The sinister minister, surely one of the wealthiest Baptist preachers without a congregation, has had a very successful career at that, and he's smarter than the Black Brunch gang. He isn't in New York complaining that Manhattan brunch spots are too white. He's in Silicon Valley complaining that the C-suites and boardrooms of gazillion-dollar tech companies are too white. Well, you know the old saying, follow the money, ladies and gentlemen. You don't get paid leaning on brunchers. You get paid leaning on Google, a company in which whites are slightly underrepresented, but Asian Americans are wildly overrepresented, constituting about 30% of its employees. So why isn't Black Lives Matter going after Asian Americans? Why? Because it would be racist? Oh, I tell you, we need a scorecard to keep up with this, folks. When it comes to people of color, you can be sure that the sinister minister has a favorite crayon in his diversity pack. Practically every affirmative action debate in California, whether on corporate diversity or college admissions is silently, guiltily concerned with the fact that it is not whites who are overrepresented in positions of prestige, but members of a minority group that actually doesn't really count or doesn't rank very high in the racial identity pecking order. One whose interests there are not much, or there is not much juice in defending. Let's see here. Here it is. When it comes to politics, all the money is in dysfunction, and Asian Americans are relatively short on that. Sensible people would tell these pathetic bullies to mind their own damn business. But minding your business and Google's business is literally Jesse Jackson's business. Literally, Uncle Joe. Not Engineer Joe, Uncle Joe, the crazy uncle across the street from the White House and Blair House or the Observatory or wherever the vice president lives. Up in the attic, I don't know. It's what he does and how he eats. And it's the left's best growth, only growth industry. Build nothing, create nothing, nurture nothing, and then shut down I-93 until you get your way, whether that means money in pocket, which is what the Castro protesters and Jesse Jackson are after, or whether that simply means luxuriating in the addictive pleasure of moral preening, which is what idiot white college kids in New York are after. The latter requires an audience, thus the Occupy a Denver omelet movement. You thought I was kidding about that, didn't you? They're coming for your eggs. They're coming for your eggs! What's hilarious is that the protesters themselves are getting a lesson in why private life does matter. When an enterprising WBZ-TV reporter, Ken McLeod, that is the perfect name for a TV reporter, isn't it? Ken McLeod, WBZ-TV News. He'll be an anchor someday, trust me. I can tell just from the name. Ken McLeod, WBZ-TV News. Almost makes me want to change my name to Ken McLeod. I'd have a TV job in five minutes if I changed my name to Ken McLeod. Well, Ken McLeod started tracking down the Boston protesters who shut down the freeway and found them at their homes. Often their parents' homes, mansions in Brooklyn. He was accused of harassment. Told, I need you to leave our property immediately. We just want our omelets back, man. Give us back our omelets and we'll be happy. Leave you in peace. Oh, man, I tell you, I don't know why so many conservatives get so bent out of shape at left-wing hypocrisy. I think it's funny. It's funny, and it's especially funny if you turn it around on them. You know, because, again, it's psychological projection. It's right tribe, wrong tribe. It's okay. Anything they do is perfectly okay because they're morally perfect. Anybody who tries to turn it around on them, how dare you! Which is to say, the protesters, having inserted themselves into public affairs, wished to enjoy the courtesy that they refused to extend to those who hadn't inserted themselves into public affairs. When it comes to dopey trustafarians, there's more tangled than just their hair, ladies and gentlemen. During the Civil Rights Movement, the real one, half a century ago, not the ersatz one led today by Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton et al., which is, by the way, they've linked, hashtag Black Lives Matter has now linked up with Hamas. I just thought you should know that. I guess that means there's going to be rockets and missiles raining down on U.S. population centers in the not-too-distant future. It's no joke. Go to politicalpistachio.com, find my post on it. Politics did genuinely intersect with brunch in the original civil rights movement. The real one. On one side of the issue were people who argued that the social situation of African Americans at the time was so dire and so oppressive that invasive federal action was necessary. On the other side were well-intentioned conservatives such as Barry Goldwater and any number of writers for National Review, for example, who argued that if the reach of Washington were extended into every mom-and-pop diner in the country, it would constitute a step towards the abolition of private life. That the natural and inevitable extension of the principle at work would ensure that rather than being treated as private property, businesses reclassified as public accommodations would be treated more like public property. That the greasy snout of politics eventually would stick itself into every last precinct of what had been considered the sphere of privacy beyond the public sector. And now, today, 50 years later, there is no such thing as a private sector. Or, in other words, as Kevin Williamson concludes, it turns out both sides were right. Here's that Winter and Raging Whiner Nation post at the campaign spot. It was in the Morning Jolt on Monday. There was too much to get to on Monday, so I'm getting to it now. Last weekend in San Francisco, leftists turned on leftists. Approximately 300 people shut down Castro Street on Saturday during the night when most people are going to bars. Extremists chose the Castro because it is a space dominated by white middle-class men and is symbolic of the racial divide between the LGBT community and gentrification in San Francisco in general. Extremists also wanted to draw attention to the fact that the Castro supports LGBT-related organizations that are generally apathetic towards black and brown people, so I guess that means homosexuals are racists. I guess. Meanwhile, across the country, officials from the Massachusetts State Police and Easton Fire Department are reporting that an ambulance responded to violent car accident was blocked from traveling to a Boston hospital on last Thursday. Massachusetts State Police Superintendent Timothy P. Albin told reporters during a press conference that an Easton ambulance carrying car crash victims in serious condition had to be diverted to a lower-level hospital because of the protests. About 11 people were arrested by police for blocking I-93 north near East Milton Square on Thursday as part of an action by the Black Lives Matter protest movement. The protesters blocked traffic by locking themselves together with the help of concrete-filled barrels they transported to the site with a rented box truck. Hey, protesters. Crash victims' lives matter too. Then, of course, we have the brunch protesters, which we just mentioned. In a twist on sit-in style protest, civil rights extremists entered several restaurants in New York City and Oakland, California on Sunday in what organizers billed as a black brunch. About 3 dozen, that doesn't mean that lunch was burned, by the way. About 3 dozen people participated in demonstrations in New York where they momentarily disrupted meals at popular midtown eateries, including Lalise, Mailino, and Pershing Square, places protesters identified as predominantly white spaces. Now, storming into bars and restaurants, locking themselves to concrete-filled barrels and blocking interstates, this is the Obama-nist grassroots of 2015. This is the left, capital L. This is blind fury, lashing out at others for having the audacity to drink beverages, eat brunch, or commute in a manner that the self-appointed arbiters of justice on the left deem insufficiently down with the cause. There is no actual activism here. There is no attempt at persuasion. There is no thought. There is only resentment and anger and a desire to lash out at anybody who isn't one of them. Right tribe? Wrong tribe. There's no agenda or plan to actually improve things. There's no call to action. It's just rage whining. My fellow men and women of the right, yes, we have our bad days. Yes, there are times somebody on our side embarrasses us or does something stupid. But we can all thank God we don't have idiots, losers, and misanthropic rage mongers like this claiming to act in the name of our cause. Notice that there's not a single prominent member of the Democrat Party willing to call out this idiocy for what it is, because it's very useful to them. Notice that the Furies are disrupting life in Oakland, Boston, San Francisco, and New York City, places where Republicans, much less conservatives, are very few and far between. The far left is making life miserable for the rank-and-file Democrats and Mayor de Blasio, Governors Andrew Cuomo and Jerry Brown, Barack Obama are nowhere to be found, folks. Nothing to say. They can't take the left on too directly or loudly. Why would they? They are the left. There's not one of them willing to say, you're not allowed to do this because you're impeding the rights of your fellow Americans. And you're making a mockery of the ideals you claim to uphold. Grow up! There's a long, colorful history of the lunatic, paranoid left turning against the slightly less left. And I'll skip over that Gloria Steinem example, except to say that a radical feminist group in the 60s actually accused Gloria Steinem of being a CIA agent. Wow, I wouldn't have thought the CIA would have gone downhill that fast that long ago. I mean, and now Jim Garrity is pretty temperate in his choice of language. He calls them stupid leftists. Stupid leftists, or we could call them rage whiners, whichever term you prefer, aren't quite ruining this country, but they're throwing sand in the gears. There's an opening here for a real leader, for someone who's willing to stand up. You know, in other words, another Sister Souljah moment. Somebody willing to stand up and say, the moment somebody gets in the way of a good person trying to get to work, arrest the bastard. The moment somebody starts disrupting a restaurant patrons just trying to eat their meal, call the cops and have them hauled out. It's private property. I mean, even Barack Obama once said, "Can't I just eat my waffle?" You may have noticed my sphincters are getting another workout at the moment. Won't go into any more details. Oh, now come on, Cog in the chat room. You know I can't repeat that on the air. I suppose it depends on how fat the cowgirl is, but at any rate, I'm about to burst here. But I'm gonna get through the last minute before the music plays, and then ride that all the way to the end. Tomorrow, of course, the Thursday edition of the Hard Starboard Radio Network. Boy, this is. Maybe I shouldn't eat so big a lunch after not having eaten anything all day. This always has this effect on me. But tomorrow, yes indeed, the Thursday edition of the Hard Starboard Radio Network, 22 hours and 2 minutes from now. blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network. You know what? I don't know what we're going to talk about, but there's always something, ladies and gentlemen. There's always something, because Barack Obama never goes away. He never will go away. And so whatever comes up tomorrow, you'll find out at the same time I will. Join us then, and have a great evening, folks.